I've always been fascinated by post-apocalypse fiction, and I don't think this is simply because it's the end of the world, because the question is really about what remains in the aftermath. If we get rid of the government and technology and comfort and all the aspects of civilization that we take for granted, what are we left with? What does it actually mean to be a human in the aftermath of all of these things being taken away? So today I thought I'd rank my 10 favorite post-apocalyptic novels, and I'd love to hear your own favorites in the comments because there are so many more that I would love to get to in the future. Coming in at number 10 is one that I just recently finished reading. This is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Now, this wasn't my favorite post-apocalyptic novel, but it is the one that I read most recently, and so I thought it was relevant for me to talk about here. It follows a traveling troupe of Shakespeare actors after this pandemic essentially wipes out 99+% of the world. So there's very few people left, and it's about rebuilding after the collapse. And it follows different characters a lot across different plot points in time, essentially. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it was an interesting exploration of the past of one character, the present of another, and the future. It's relatively hopeful for a post-apocalypse story, and I think it's pretty well written, and I can see why a lot of people love it. Even if it didn't quite reach the heights of a lot of these other books on my list, I still think it's worth reading Station 11 if you're interested in more modern post-apocalypse literature. Now, at number 9, I have World War Z by Max Brooks. Now, a lot more people are probably familiar with the film version of this. Brad Pitt starred in the movie, and it's a good film too, but the book is, as is always the case, completely different from the film. It's really interesting because it's written in this kind of oral history way, a bunch of interviews that are collected from survivors afterwards. So it really takes the opposite extreme, right? Where it's looking back on the zombie wars. And it gives that a really interesting kind of perspective that makes it feel, unique, believable. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. But if you're looking to get into great zombie fiction, this is certainly one of the ones that define the genre. And so I can highly recommend checking out World War Z. The 10th Man idea is really interesting. If you know, really great one. At number 8, I have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking maybe that's a post-apocalypse novel. I'm stretching the definition here a little bit because this is partly a post-apocalyptic novel, but most of the novel takes place before an apocalypse, right? So it's really more of a dystopian novel, but it does touch on themes of post-apocalypse. And so I thought I can't leave it off the list because this is one of my favorite books. It's a wonderful book. It's a great exploration of the power of reading as well, and books and memory, and why stories really matter in the first place, which is something I'm obviously very passionate about. So for that reason alone, I thought this is one of the classics everyone should experience. And I have to talk about Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Bradbury is a amazing, magnificent writer. So I highly recommend checking out some of his 5 billion other books. He's very prolific as a writer. Fahrenheit 451 is a great place to start. And number 7, we have The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. So this is a great one. I won't spend too much time talking about this one because I actually do have another John Wyndham one, my favorite John Wyndham novel. That's later on the list. But The Day of the Triffids is a classic of the genre. I had to talk about it. The premise is basically humanity goes blind, and then there's these kind of like human-eating plants that start taking over. And it's a really compelling survivor story. Maybe I didn't pitch it in the best way. But it's influenced so many other books since then, and I think for that reason alone, The Day of the Triffids is just really worth reading. Blindness by Jose Saramago is another one that I'm really looking forward to reading in the future, and that also kind of touches on the idea of people going blind, which is both an interesting theme, but also a very interesting type of post-apocalypse. Flus and bombs, I think, or nuclear wars seem to be the most common ones, or maybe like a zombie apocalypse, but this is another interesting exploration. Anyways, moving along here. At number 6, I have I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. Again, this is one a lot of people probably have seen the film, or maybe Will Smith starred in the film, so you might have seen the film. But ironically, this book is definitely one that really helped shape the genre of post-apocalyptic novels, but also specifically zombie novels. And the irony is that it's not even about zombies. Like in the movie, they're zombies, but in the book, they're vampires. So before we even had zombies, we had vampires playing the role of zombies. But that might be a subtle difference to a lot of people. It does make some differences in the plot, but really, functionally, when you think of zombies, you're kind of thinking of Matheson's understanding of how he wrote vampires into this, and how other novels took that on into the future. So besides helping to lay the foundations of what would eventually become the zombie genre, it's really an interesting and original idea about isolation and survival and loneliness, which is another way that it really helped shape the genre. And I actually suspect rereading it today, I'll probably find like a lot more interesting elements to it, because I read it quite a while ago, and I was just reviewing and I was thinking, yeah, that's right. Those were some of the themes. But when I first read it, I guess because I was younger, maybe they didn't resonate with me as much, which is another great reason to reread great works of literature as we grow older. It's been a few years, and maybe it's time pretty soon. Anyways, we are now to our top 5. At number 5, this is my 5th favorite, like a dystopian fiction / destruction of the world post-apocalypse, The Stand by Stephen King. I'm a big Stephen King fan, even though I haven't really spoken a lot about him on this channel. He's great, right? As a writer, as a storyteller, nobody's able to keep the gripping storyline for 1,000 pages like Stephen King is. And so it's an enormous story about a plague that wipes out civilization before this battle between good and evil, primordial kind of battle, ensues. So very compelling story. It seems like it would be too long to tell such a story. Like how can you keep our attention for like over 1,000 pages on something like this? But it really does. I mean, the characters are so compelling. The way that the world evolves after the destruction, which is really what we're interested in, is very well depicted. There's one moment near the end that it could be described as an Deus ex machina, or God from the machine, which is like you have all of these plot points, and then a swoosh just comes in and kind of fills the ending, which can be generally a bit of a letdown because you want a satisfying ending. But I think Stephen King actually did quite a good job, better than I expected, of using that stereotypical kind of cliche plot point in a creative way, which makes it still worth reading. So the whole novel from beginning to end is really a great one, and I think it's King at his best. So I highly recommend you check out this one here. I mean, there's so many other great ones to check out, but if you are looking for a post-apocalyptic King, The Stand is your go-to. Now at number 4, we have The Chrysalids, also by John Wyndham. I would mention one of his books. This is my favorite John Wyndham novel. The Chrysalids it is a post-apocalyptic novel, but it's so much wider than that, and it's not as maybe depressing as some of the other ones on this list might be. On the surface, it's a story about these mutations that happen after a nuclear catastrophe, fallout, but really it's the exploration of the evolution of humanity. It reminds me a lot of Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End. If anyone's read that, that's a great book about humanity moving on to kind of the next space, with the same kind of fascination about what humanity might eventually become. And that book was written a couple of years before this one, so I imagine that it did maybe directly influence it. But I think this is what makes The Chrysalids such a memorable piece of literature. It's both science fiction and post-apocalypse. I highly recommend you check out The Chrysalids. Now we're in the top 3. So number 3, I have The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is probably the bleakest novel on this list, but I also found it to be possibly the most moving one, because at the heart of the story, it's really about a father and a son that are trying to survive in a world that has almost completely died out. McCarthy is an extraordinary writer. And if I were going to rank all of these books just purely based on the prose, this might be higher, because McCarthy's just a genius. But even so, I do think that this book, as dark as it might be, really has the possibility of changing you in a positive way. It's hard to explain, but sometimes dark books really give us insight and gratitude into our lives and what we have and all the things we're taking for granted. And that was certainly my experience reading The Road. Now, certainly I have to rank it only number 3 because the top 2 for me are just, as far as post-apocalyptic novels go, they're the genre definers, they're my favorites. But this book, as a standalone book, brilliant, and it's a really great entry in the post-apocalypse genre. Very interesting. Then number 2, we have Alas, Babylon by Pat Frank. And one of the reasons I rank this one so highly is because it's just super weighty in the genre. It's so important. You can't really read post-apocalyptic fiction without knowing Pat Frank, without knowing Alas, Babylon. Well, I mean, you could read it without knowing them, but you can't read it without without experiencing the influence of it. Maybe that's the best way to put it. It's one of those novels that really established this modern genre. But beyond the historical impact, it's an excellent novel. It's like many great novels in this genre. It doesn't focus on spectacle or action. It focuses on the aftermath, rebuilding, ordinary people trying to rebuild life after the nuclear fallout. And I found that just super deeply compelling. And Last Babylon really is one of the best books in the genre. Now, before we get to number one, I do want to quickly mention my book club, The Reading Room, on Substack. Every month, members vote on 4 or 5 books, and together we'll come together and we'll choose one children's classic and one adult classic, a piece of adult classic fiction to read together. So for this summer, as an example, we're reading Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman as our summer pick, and then we're reading Watership Down by Richard Adams as our children's pick. And the nice thing about having 2 different books is that one is going to focus more on the joy, the insight, the depth of reading, and another on the potential of our human experiences to grow through being exposed to challenging but meaningful literature. So we really have a wide range of books. I like having one children's, one adult together. That's been a lot of fun for me, to explore the human experience, but also have a lot of fun along the way. And alongside the reading itself, we have discussion threads, live book club conversations, reading guides, and more than anything, I'm trying to really build a genuine community of readers online, a place to talk about books and writing and ideas, and really anything that grows out of that. So, please do consider joining the Reading Room, because that's what I hope it will become, a welcoming room for everyone, every type of reader to come together. You can subscribe for free to Substack, and you'll be able to follow along with us to read. We're reading The Hobbit this summer, free for anybody who wants to join, and then joining this book club as well, going a bit deeper. The only expectation is the possibility that a book might actually change you. That's the only thing you need. And if it sounds like something you'd enjoy, I'd love for you to join us. It's also the best way to support this channel. But moving on, with all of that said, let's get to my number 1 pick for my favorite post-apocalypse novel. Now, this one is one that I have read a couple of times, and it's one that I think I will come back to throughout my entire life. My number 1 pick is Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. This isn't just my favorite post-apocalyptic novel because it was influential. It's one of my favorite novels genuinely, overall. I think I wouldn't necessarily rank it in my top 10, but it's up there. It's what I love most about it is how well it explores what we do after, in the aftermath, in the rebuilding. I mentioned this in a number of the other books, and this is a criteria that I use to consider my favorite post-apocalypse novels, and I think that's because that's what I'm really interested in. Maybe for other people that would be a different thing. But for me, the question is what survives, what disappears, what is civilization really built upon, what really matters, dig down to the essence of things. What does it really mean to be human when the things that we have surrounding our human experiences really disappear? All of the distractions and tools. And this book is quiet, and it's a deep exploration that I think will stay with you for many years. So if you've never read it, I highly, highly recommend that you check out Earth Abides. It's just some great passages from the Bible as well that it's kind of based on in terms of questions of what happens at the end of all things. Really great book. Simple read, define the genre. Go check it out. Now, there are still some major books in the genre I haven't read. I mentioned Blindness by Sarah Mago before, and A Canticle for Leibowitz is probably maybe the other big one, Walter M. Miller. The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler is another one, and Children of Men is one I've seen the film, but I've never read the book. So I know this ranking will change over time as I read more. Lucifer's Hammer. There's so many other great ones. But for now, these are my 10 favorite post-apocalypse novels. So let me know in the comments what your favorite is, because I'm genuinely looking for another great book to add to my reading list. I might have to wait a little while before I read another post-apocalypse novel, because I went on a bit of a tear recently, and probably for your own well-being, it's not good to only read this genre. But I'm very interested to hear more from you guys. And If you like this video, please do consider subscribing, leaving it a like, leaving a comment, and letting me know your favorite video. And I hope to see you again soon for another video talking about some different type of literature. Until then, happy reading and take care.